Do you feel as though you want to take action, but you just need to read a few more books, or you need to go and read a little bit more in Reddit and, search through some subreddits to get some more information? Or do you feel as though you need to go through Google a little bit deeper and, a couple more blog posts, or maybe a couple more YouTube videos? If I just watch a few more YouTube videos, then I'm going to have all the information I need to go ahead and make a decision. And if you're someone that is naturally inclined towards taking in more information prior to taking any action out in the world, then I want to talk to you directly, because one of the biggest reasons that people are held back from actually going out and forging their path in the world is because they're more inclined towards taking in information as opposed to going out into the world and making things happen. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Joe Yuli, and I'm a philosopher. And I help people from all around the world to know their career path with conviction, this deep sense of inner knowing that this is my path and this is what I'm meant to be doing with my life. And I've noticed quite frequently that people will have a tendency towards either constantly needing to introspect, constantly needing to take in more information, constantly needing to consume, and they're unable to actually go out there and do things. And then there are these other people that will go out there and they'll do things and do things and do things, but they're actually out of tune with their inner world, their inner sense of self, their inner calling. And I want to speak about this two-sided symbiotic relationship that needs to be brought into balance in order for somebody to move forward and forge their path in the world. And one of the analogies that I love using and that I love looking at in order to better understand how to forge your path in the world and really begin to make things happen for yourself is a volcano. So if you think about a volcano, and most of the time it is inactive, there are plenty of volcanoes all around the world that have been inactive for thousands of years, right? They're just lying there dormant. There's no explosive activity coming out, and there's no explosive activity coming out anytime soon. And so they're sort of just sitting there. Everything is happening underneath the surface. Everything that volcano is connected to is happening beneath the surface. There's nothing out there that you're going to look at and say, like, whoa, the volcano is erupting. Now, there is a different side to that volcano. So every now and again, a volcano will erupt and just cause absolute havoc, absolute chaos. If you want to think about Mount Vesuvius back in 79 AD when it erupted, and it hadn't even erupted for 800 years prior to that. So if you were someone like Pliny the Younger, who essentially had never experienced a volcano erupting, then to suddenly see and witness all the people running around like mad, looking for safety. He even wrote a letter to one of the famous historians, and he said that people were so afraid of death when Mount Vesuvius erupted that they themselves were, praying for it. And when this eruption happens, it ends up sparking a new sort of forging of the world, a new sort of forging of the earth that is connected to it, that is close to it, that is beneath it. It does this through the lava that explodes from the volcano itself. And it also begins to change the air and the atmosphere and the ground, because the clouds of ash that come from it end up dropping into the world and changing everything. And so the volcano has these two phases. It has a phase where it is completely inactive. It is quiet. We could say that the volcano is being introspective. It's being introverted. Nothing's really happening externally, but plenty is happening underneath with the magma that is getting pressured underneath the earth. And then we have a phase where the volcano is active. It's eruptive. It is changing the very landscape around it. And if we start to think about this in the framing of forging your very own path in the world, then you'll have an introspective stage and you've also got an active stage. And most people have a tendency between one of the two. So you'll have some people that will constantly be interacting with their internal world. They'll constantly be wanting to reflect on things. They'll constantly be wanting to say, like, how does this material affect me? How does this impact what I'm going through? How does this affect my own feelings, my own way of seeing the world, my own belief system, my own personal thoughts? And it's all happening internally. Right? It's a very rich internal environment, but you're not really seeing it externally because it's so hidden from the external world. And so this world internally, when it's really worked on, and when it's a natural orientation, meaning that the natural impulse of the individual is directed internally, inside themselves, then they've worked a lot internally on themselves, but they haven't really worked on the external in the world. And there's this other side where it's more action orientated, where the internal landscape can often be neglected. It can be a little bit immature. There can be a lack of a sense of calling, a lack of a sense of this is who I am, and this is what I want, and this is what I stand for, and this is what I believe, and this is what I know to be true. And instead, it's more orientated towards the world, and it's orientated towards doing things in the world in order to make one's presence known. And so when you have people that are incredibly action orientated, they'll often do things in the world and make real progress that's very visual and you can see. But when they're disconnected from themselves and they've made all that progress in the world, often it's the wrong way. It's going in a direction that isn't connected to their soul, and instead it's going in a direction that maybe aligns with values of their culture, of their society, and they might not be the best for that actual individual, but instead it's very, you can see it. You can see when people are making progress in the world. And so you need both. You need both of these things. You need to be introspectively aware, meaning you need to know who you are. You need to know what it is that you're about. You need to know what it is that you want to be doing with your life. You need to know who it is that you're becoming. These are all introspective qualities, and these are all through the lens of self-knowledge, which is so important. If you don't have self-knowledge around who it is that you are and what it is that you're about, then you're lacking one of the most important pieces of being able to forge your path in the world. Because really, if you don't have that piece, then you end up forging somebody else's path in the world because you are disconnected from what it is that you're meant to be doing. You're probably building someone else's vision. You probably got your path from looking and mimicking other people's paths. You see it all the time on social media where people are they have a particular style of business or are representing themselves in a way that other people are representing themselves. And yet, if they were to tune in, they would realize that that's out of alignment. That's something that they shouldn't be doing. And so the way to begin developing that side of yourself is through deep reflection. It's through things like going and analyzing yourself and doing personality tests and really beginning to map out who you are as a person. And this is an ongoing process for a long period of time. But remember that when you're looking at the volcano analogy, it's inactive, right? There's nothing there in the world. There's no change in the world. There's no presence of yourself in the world, which leads to the second piece that you need to bring in to yourself, which is the side of action. It's the side of, okay, now that I know who I am, I need to express this. I need to be seen. Maybe that means that you need to be on camera, right? You may need to be on social media, sharing your story, sharing your message, sharing how you want to share and serve with the world. That might be something that's needed. It might be expressing your work, right? It doesn't mean that you've got to be a personality, but it might mean that you need to be expressing your work, sharing your work, standing up for your work in public, right? If you're at a corporate workplace and you want to say like, hey, this is what I've done and here it is, and you're not used to that, that's going to be a little bit disorientating. But until you do that, people often can't see what it is that you're about and what it is that you need to be doing. And so if you aren't able to bring in that action side of yourself, you end up being this one-sided person. Now, what ends up happening, and sort of like the paradox that occurs, is that people that tend towards introspection will try to solve their action through introspection. And obviously it sounds like, well, why would they do that? But what ends up happening is they'll go to try to take action, but then they're like, maybe I'm not ready to take action. So therefore I need to go and read a little bit more. I need to go and learn a little bit more. I need to go and seek maybe other people's opinions because I'm not ready to go and put myself out in the world. When really putting themselves out in the world or taking that action ends up developing that side of themselves that then brings everything into balance. So rather than asking or reading more or taking in more YouTube videos, they go out into the world and they try something. And that experience ends up teaching them a lot more than anything they could have consumed, anything that they could have taken in. There's the sort of ratio that is quite a nice ratio. It's like a 4-to-1 ratio where it's like, okay, if you took in like a 30-minute video, then you want to go out there and do like 2 hours of action or expression in the world to begin to balance yourself out because you've probably had a long period of your life where you've been naturally introspective, naturally internal. And the same applies to people that are overly action orientated, people that are disconnected from their self, who just go out there and do and try and do and try, and it's not quite working, oftentimes because they're disconnected from that inner landscape. They're disconnected from what it is that they're actually meant to be doing. They're disconnected with understanding what their gifts are, what their talents are, what their natural innate power is in the world, what they can do in the world. And so they need to go the opposite, which is, hey, you actually need to analyze yourself a little bit more. You need to journal a little bit more. You need to potentially have some time where you're alone and you're isolated and you're reconnecting with yourself. Once again, bringing that side back into balance. And so there are these cyclical, important moments within people's lives where they transition to the other. Where if we to think about the volcano, one is like, hey, this person needs to erupt. Oh, okay, hey, this person needs to go to a period of inactivity and really get an understanding of what is underneath and what is brewing below the conscious mind. And without that, there is this inability to ever be able to really see what it is that you are, really see who it is that you can become, and be able to forge your path in a way that is truly and deeply aligned. And if you want to know how it is that I help people and guide people to knowing their path, to be able to balance out these sides of themselves, this introspective side and this action-orientated side, by unearthing their career archetype and then going out into the world and embodying it so that you can walk your path, walk your calling, and all these different, possibilities of what you could do turn into an actual reality where you see, like, this is what I'm meant for, then go ahead and check out the Unearth membership. In there, I show and guide students how to unearth their career archetype, this energetic expression at the base of your soul, and begin to embody it so that you can walk a path in the 21st century that you feel deeply connected to and deeply called for. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave a link below this video, and I'll see you in the next one.